It is one of America's oldest unsolved mysteries, and it happened in our own backyard. What happened to the lost colony of Roanoke?
In a world filled with mysteries, few phenomena are as perplexing and haunting as mass disappearances. From vanished colonies to missing flights, these cases have left experts puzzled and entire communities in sorrow. This video delves into 10 such unexplained events, each representing a unique conundrum in the annals of history. Without offering conclusions or speculations, we aim to present these enigmas in their stark, bewildering detail. Number 1. Roanoke Colony. The story of the Roanoke Colony remains one of the most enduring mysteries of American history. Founded in 1587 by English settlers, the colony was situated on Roanoke Island in what is today's North Carolina. Under the governance of John White, 115 colonists aimed to establish the first permanent English settlement in the New World. After leaving for England to secure additional supplies and support, White returned in 1590 to find the colony completely deserted. Not a single colonist was in sight, and the only clue to their fate was the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post. Various theories have been posited over the years to explain the fate of the settlers. Some believe they were killed by local Native American tribes, although relations had reportedly been amicable. Others suggest that they moved inland and were absorbed by native communities. There have also been theories about a possible evacuation due to harsh conditions or an impending Spanish attack. However, no definitive evidence has ever been found to explain the disappearance. Archaeological digs have unearthed English-style artifacts and remains in the nearby area, suggesting the possibility that the settlers moved locations. Yet these findings do not account for the eerie absence of bodies or any written account from the colonists themselves. Even if they had moved, the question remains: why did they not leave any substantial clue for White and future settlers? Searches for the lost colonists continued for years, and various expeditions were dispatched to find them, but all proved fruitless. What complicates matters further is the lack of contemporary records or accounts that could shed light on what happened. The primary source of information about the colony is John White's own accounts, which are sparse and raise more questions than answers. Over the centuries, the Roanoke colony has become more than just a historical mystery. It has entered the realm of folklore and cultural mythology. Numerous books, films, and television shows have been inspired by the enigmatic disappearance, each offering its own take on what might have happened. Yet for all the attention and speculation, the fate of the Roanoke colonists remains an unsolved puzzle. Modern technology has brought new tools to bear on this old mystery, such as ground-penetrating radar and advanced carbon dating techniques. Even with these advancements, conclusive answers remain elusive. As time passes, the likelihood of solving the mystery diminishes, leaving us to ponder on the myriad possibilities. Number 2. Flight 19. Flight 19 stands as one of the most intriguing mysteries in aviation history, adding fuel to the enigma surrounding the Bermuda Triangle, an area infamous for inexplicable disappearances. On December 5, 1945, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers took off from the Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale in Florida for a routine training exercise. Led by experienced pilot Lieutenant Charles Taylor, the squadron was supposed to execute a few simple maneuvers and return. However, things took a turn for the mysterious when the entire Flight 19 vanished without a trace. Contact with the flight was lost after a series of perplexing radio communications. Lieutenant Taylor reported being disoriented and unable to recognize landmarks, even suggesting at one point that they might be over the Florida Keys, far south of their intended course. The group was instructed to fly west towards the mainland, but communications became increasingly fragmented and finally ceased altogether. Despite the use of radio triangulation, efforts to locate the flight failed. An intensive search operation was immediately launched, involving hundreds of ships and aircraft. To deepen the mystery, one of the rescue planes, a Martin Mariner, also disappeared during the search, although this was later attributed to a potential fuel explosion. No wreckage or debris of Flight 19 was ever located. The Navy's final report concluded ambiguously that the planes had vanished, as if they had flown to Mars. Various theories have been proposed to explain the disappearance of Flight 19. Some of these include navigational errors, disorientation due to magnetic anomalies, and even the possibility of the plane sinking in a marsh, making recovery impossible. Skeptics of the Bermuda Triangle mystery point to rational explanations such as rapidly changing weather conditions or human error. However, none of these theories can fully account for the range of oddities associated with this case, such as why experienced pilots like Taylor became so disoriented or why no distress signals were sent out as fuel ran low. For more than 7 decades, the disappearance of Flight 19 has continued to intrigue historians, aviation experts, and amateur sleuths. It has been the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and even Hollywood films, each speculating on the fate of the lost squadron. Despite the plethora of theories and extensive search operations, no definitive evidence has ever been presented to resolve the case. Number 3. Mary Celeste. The story of the Mary Celeste, an American merchant brigantine, adds a maritime dimension to the unsettling phenomenon of mass disappearances. Discovered adrift in the Atlantic Ocean on December 4, 1872, the Mary Celeste was in seaworthy condition but eerily devoid of human life. The ship had been on its way from New York to Genoa, carrying a cargo of industrial alcohol. Though it was fully stocked and in navigable state, not a single person of the 10 on board, Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crew members, were ever seen or heard from again. What amplifies the enigma is the state in which the ship was found. There was ample food and water, the cargo was largely intact, and the ship's log showed no signs of trouble. The last entry was made just 11 days before the Mary Celeste was found. Adding to the intrigue, the lifeboat was missing, but all personal belongings and navigational instruments were still on board. A 6-month supply of food and water remained untouched, and the cargo of alcohol barrels was mostly intact save for 9 barrels that were empty. Over the years, multiple theories have been suggested to explain the mysterious disappearance of the people aboard the Mary Celeste. These range from waterspouts and underwater earthquakes to piracy and mutiny. Some speculate that fumes from the alcohol could have led to an explosion, prompting the crew to abandon ship. However, there was no evidence of fire or any structural damage to the vessel. Others suggest a more dramatic explanation involving sea monsters or alien abductions, but these are largely dismissed as sensationalist interpretations. The story of the Mary Celeste has become a cultural icon of maritime mysteries, spawning a variety of fictional adaptations in literature, film, and television. Yet the lack of concrete evidence or eyewitness accounts leaves us with nothing but speculation. Over the years, numerous expeditions and underwater searches have been undertaken to locate any remnants or clues that might shed light on this perplexing mystery. Despite these extensive efforts, the fate of the crew and passengers remains unknown, leaving the Mary Celeste as one of the most baffling unsolved cases in nautical history. Number 4. The Lost Colony of Greenland. The enigma of the lost colony of Greenland is an enduring puzzle that spans over half a millennium. Established in the late 10th century by Norse settlers, the Greenland colonies were an extension of Viking exploration and settlement. For nearly 500 years, these Norse communities in Greenland thrived, consisting of 2 main settlements, the Eastern Settlement and the Western Settlement. Then, around the 15th century, they mysteriously vanished, leaving behind deserted farms and unanswered questions. Early records suggest that the colonies were reasonably prosperous. They traded walrus ivory, furs, and other goods with Europe. Their disappearance is especially perplexing given the colony's sustained contact and trade with mainland Europe. When contact was lost, multiple expeditions were sent from Europe to ascertain the settlers' fate, but they found only empty dwellings and abandoned artifacts. Theories about what happened have been numerous, but none offer a definitive explanation. Climate change during the Little Ice Age is one prevailing hypothesis. Colder temperatures would have led to harsher living conditions and made farming increasingly untenable. This climatic shift could have affected both the availability of resources and the colony's ability to sustain itself. However, this theory doesn't fully explain why there were no signs of a mass exodus, or why the settlers didn't attempt to return to Iceland or Norway, places they had originated from. Another theory suggests that the Norse settlers may have been assimilated into Inuit populations, yet there is scant archaeological evidence to support this claim. Some skeletal remains show a mix of Norse and Inuit characteristics, but these are not sufficient to explain the disappearance of an entire colony. Another explanation posits that they fell victim to the Black Plague. However, this doesn't account for why no mass graves have been found. The role of economic decline and isolation has also been studied. It is possible that as the colonies became more isolated and less profitable, the European kingdoms lost interest in maintaining them, causing a gradual decline until they were finally abandoned. This would not be implausible considering the changing economic landscape of Europe in the late Middle Ages, as the colony's main exports like walrus ivory became less valuable. Despite extensive archaeological digs, rigorous scientific studies, and historical speculation, the fate of the lost colony of Greenland remains shrouded in mystery. Unlike other unexplained disappearances, this didn't happen suddenly but likely occurred over decades, if not a century. This has made solving the enigma even more challenging. It's a disappearance that has intrigued historians and archaeologists alike, spawning theories that range from the logical to the fantastical. Number 5. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is one of the most baffling and eerie mysteries of the 20th century, captivating imaginations worldwide since it unfolded in the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia in 1959. Led by Igor Dyatlov, a group of 9 experienced hikers set off on an expedition to scale a mountain known as Kholat Syakhl. What was meant to be a challenging yet straightforward trek ended in a tragedy that defies straightforward explanation. When the group failed to send signals or return, search parties were dispatched. What they discovered has been the subject of countless investigations, speculations, and even supernatural theories. The group's tent was found slashed open from the inside, and their belongings, including essential clothing and equipment, were left behind. The bodies of the hikers were scattered in the snow, some kilometers away from their original campsite. They were found in varying states of undress, suggesting they had rushed out into the sub-zero temperatures. Bizarrely, some exhibited signs of physical trauma, such as fractured skulls and broken ribs, but no external wounds. Even more puzzling was the fact that some clothes were found to be radioactive. The Soviet investigation concluded that an unknown compelling force had caused their deaths, a cryptic phrase that only served to deepen the enigma. While avalanche theories were initially popular, they were eventually discounted due to the nature of the injuries and the absence of evidence supporting a significant snowslide. Another explanation considers the possibility of infrasound waves caused by wind flowing over the mountains, inducing panic attacks in the hikers. Yet this theory fails to explain the physical trauma evident on some bodies. Over the years, the Dyatlov Pass incident has inspired a multitude of books, documentaries, and fictional accounts trying to explain what happened. Conspiratorial explanations involving secret military experiments have also been proffered, given that the area was used for Soviet military activities. This idea is further fueled by reports of glowing orbs in the sky by other hikers around the same time, leading some to suggest UFO involvement. However, none of these theories fully resolve the myriad inconsistencies and unanswered questions surrounding the case. Recent investigations have reopened the case, employing modern scientific techniques to analyze evidence. Yet, much like the original inquiries, they offer no conclusive explanations. Even after decades of intense scrutiny, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains a dark puzzle, a disturbing sequence of events that challenges our understanding of natural phenomena and human behavior. The case is a potent reminder that, despite the advances of modern science and investigation, there are occurrences in this world that remain beyond rational comprehension. Number 6. The Anjikuni Lake Disappearance. The Anjikuni Lake disappearance is an unsettling event wrapped in both mystery and, to some extent, controversy. Situated in the remote reaches of Canada's Nunavut territory, Anjikuni Lake became the focal point of an inexplicable occurrence in 1930 when an entire Inuit village was reportedly found abandoned. Joe LaBelle, a fur trapper familiar with the area and its inhabitants, stumbled upon the scene and quickly noticed that something was amiss. Every single villager had vanished, but what made the disappearance particularly puzzling were the circumstances in which it was discovered. LaBelle noted that the huts and storehouses had been left as they were. It was as if the villagers had evaporated into thin air. Food and supplies were still in their homes. A pot of stew was even found, still bubbling over an open fire, but there was no sign of human activity. More disturbingly, he discovered that the community's sled dogs had perished from starvation, even though ample food supplies were readily available. Adding another layer of strangeness were reports that ancestral graves had been disturbed, their contents scattered. The subsequent investigation by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police only deepened the mystery. Despite extensive searches, no trace of the villagers was ever found. Theories abound as to what led to this mass disappearance. Some suggest the villagers could have been victims of a sudden natural disaster, such as a landslide or an avalanche, though no evidence to support these theories was ever found. Others speculate about disease outbreaks, but the lack of bodies undermines that idea. More fringe theories suggest supernatural phenomena, such as portals to other dimensions or extraterrestrial abductions, though these ideas tend to be dismissed by experts. What complicates the Anjikuni Lake case is the debate over its authenticity. Skeptics have questioned the veracity of Joe LaBelle's account, citing a lack of documentation and inconsistencies in the storytelling over the years. Some even posit that the tale might be an elaborate hoax or a piece of folklore that has been exaggerated with time. However, the fact remains that the RCMP did conduct an official investigation, lending some level of credence to the incident. Number 8. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Keepers. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Keeper's disappearance in 1900 is an enduring maritime enigma that has puzzled investigators and historians for over a century. Situated off the west coast of Scotland, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse was manned by 3 experienced keepers: Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur. Their responsibility was to maintain the light that guided ships through the treacherous waters. However, when a relief ship arrived to bring supplies and rotate crew members, they found the lighthouse deserted, the keepers inexplicably gone, and a host of questions left unanswered. When the relief team landed on the island, they discovered several unsettling anomalies. The door to the lighthouse was unlocked, and 2 of the 3 oilskin coats were missing, suggesting that one of the keepers had gone out in the cold without adequate protection. Inside, the clock had stopped, and a half-eaten meal lay on the table. Perhaps most intriguing were the lighthouse logs, which indicated that the men had been disturbed by severe weather and that one of them had been crying, a highly unusual behavior for seasoned keepers. Despite exhaustive searches and investigations, no trace of the 3 men was ever found. Theories have ranged from the plausible to the outlandish, each attempting to solve the enigma that befell these experienced mariners. Some hypothesize that they were swept out to sea by a rogue wave, though this wouldn't explain the absence of bodies or debris. Others suggest that one of the men went mad and murdered his colleagues, then threw himself into the sea. But the lack of any signs of a struggle contradicts this idea. A less mundane but equally unsatisfying explanation posits a supernatural event, such as a sea monster attack or an alien abduction. These theories, however, venture into the realm of the fantastical and lack empirical support. Still, what lends an eerie undertone to these speculations is the historical context. The Flannan Isles were often shrouded in local myths and legends, including tales of spirits and otherworldly beings. An official investigation by the Northern Lighthouse Board could not arrive at a conclusive reason for the disappearances. The final report stated that the men had vanished due to a wave of extraordinary size, but many consider this explanation unsatisfactory. Despite the lack of resolution, the incident led to significant changes in lighthouse operation procedures, including stricter regulations on record-keeping and emergency protocols. Number 9. The Bermeja Island Mystery. The Bermeja Island Mystery stands as one of the most confounding puzzles in the annals of geography and international relations. Located in the Gulf of Mexico, Bermeja Island was depicted on maps from the 16th to the 20th centuries, yet at some point it seemingly disappeared without a trace. The island was not merely a small, insignificant landmass. It was considered crucial for Mexico's maritime boundaries and was cited in discussions over oil exploration rights. However, when authorities undertook a thorough search to verify its existence in preparation for negotiations over maritime borders, they found nothing but open water. The disappearance of Bermeja Island has led to a cascade of questions and a web of theories, each more intricate than the last. Satellite imagery and exhaustive maritime surveys have consistently failed to find any trace of the island, puzzling scientists, cartographers, and political analysts alike. Was Bermeja Island a victim of natural erosion, slowly washed away by the relentless forces of wind and water? This seems unlikely given its documented size and significance in historical accounts. Could it have been a cartographic error that persisted through the centuries? This too raises questions, as multiple maps from different eras and sources depicted the island with some degree of consistency. Adding to the intrigue are political implications. The island's existence would extend Mexico's territorial waters, potentially giving it rights to vast oil reserves. Some theories even suggest that the island was deliberately destroyed or submerged, possibly to manipulate maritime boundaries for resource exploitation. While this may sound like the stuff of espionage novels, the high stakes involved in oil politics make it a subject of serious discussion. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that the Gulf of Mexico could hold vast, untapped oil reserves, a resource of great interest to both Mexico and the United States. In 2009, a Mexican-led investigation declared that Bermeja never existed as an island, but was likely a reef that sunk due to natural causes. This announcement did little to quell the speculation. Critics point out inconsistencies in the data and question the motives behind this sudden resolution to a centuries-old mystery. Meanwhile, Bermeja continues to be a subject of academic research, with some scientists undertaking geological studies to determine whether such a landmass could vanish due to natural causes. Number 10. The village of Joer Verde. The village of Joer Verde, also spelled as Joer Verde, is a perplexing tale set in 1923 Brazil, when a community of about 600 people mysteriously vanished without leaving a trace. Local lore and limited documented accounts state that a nearby group of farmers made the unsettling discovery. They visited Joer Verde for trading purposes but found it deserted. Buildings were intact, meals were left uneaten, and livestock roamed freely, yet not a single person could be found. Adding to the eeriness, the village schoolhouse contained a chalkboard with the phrase, "There is no salvation," written upon it. Multiple factors contribute to the baffling nature of this incident. For one, how could an entire village vanish almost overnight without leaving any signs of struggle, conflict, or mass migration? Investigations conducted by Brazilian authorities came up empty-handed. They found no signs of a mass grave, nor any evidence of an organized departure. Furthermore, personal belongings like clothes and jewelry were left behind, making the notion of voluntary exodus even less likely. Theories attempting to explain the disappearance are as numerous as they are speculative. Some suggest that the villagers were the victims of a toxic gas leak or were poisoned, either accidentally or intentionally. Yet this doesn't explain the absence of bodies or the lack of a burial site. Others speculate that the village might have been raided, but there was no evidence of violence or struggle. Then there are the more exotic theories, ranging from mass UFO abductions to interdimensional portals. However, these lack any empirical evidence and are often dismissed as fanciful conjecture. The tale of Joer Verde is also shrouded in layers of uncertainty and skepticism. The scant documentation and minimal historical records make it challenging to ascertain the veracity of the event. Some skeptics even question whether the village and its disappearance are part of Brazilian folklore rather than historical fact. Regardless of its factual basis, the story remains a part of local culture, often cited in discussions about unexplained phenomena.